Before the release of Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, I would not hesitate to say that I was the furthest thing from a fan of FromSoftware titles. Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and their respectively edgy gamer fan bases always rubbed me precisely the wrong way. And this wasn't because the games were difficult, mind you, as I generally enjoy a good challenge in video games. In fact, some of my favorites of the last few years have been markedly punishing, but I found FromSoft's offerings to be unappealing because of the everything else. I don't mind being put into challenging scenarios on a consistent basis, but when movement feels clunky, the user interface is ugly, everything's dark, you have a dumbass stamina bar, all the items have weird names, the environments and settings are bland, and don't even get me started on the fucking menu design. It leaves a lot to be desired. I felt like I was constantly working against the game just to be able to take on something that was already challenging on its own. Now, could you reasonably write off most, if not all, of those complaints as nitpicks? Sure, and for some people they are, but I contend that those are important elements of game design, and presentation carries a lot of weight for me, so their appeal became pretty much non-existent despite knowing that people love these games and that they weren't objectively bad. I knew that there were facets of FromSoft entries that I would enjoy if I just stuck with them long enough and worked past my very subjective hangups, but the positive, at least for me, never outweighed the negative, so I always opted to instead pursue games that I actually fully enjoyed, like a coward. But even despite all that, there had always been this nagging in the back of my head that I needed to get FromSoft games, and that maybe one day I could just be less picky and come to understand their appeal. Then at E3 2018, after the reveal of their new game, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, that voice got even louder. As I took in that early gameplay footage, I was floored at how terrific it looked. The environments were vibrant, the character movement was smooth and consistent, combat was rad as hell, and traversal with your cool grappling hook arm looked, dare I even say, fun? But no, don't be fooled, I told myself. This is still a Soulsborne game. It's gonna be ruthlessly difficult, and the menus are gonna be an absolute eyesore that will be impossible to navigate, and while it may look pretty, it'll probably move and feel exactly like all those other games you hate. Now, looking back on those cognitive distortions, it's very clear that I should have sought therapy for my depression much sooner, but still, I kept my eye on Sekiro, and somewhere amid all the gameplay teasers and Twitter ads, I came to realize that I maybe kinda wanted to buy this thing. And then, about a week before launch, I saw the two components that convinced me to head to my old GameStop store where I used to work and pre-order it the very next day. Clean menus, big snake. And ever since then, not a day has gone by that I haven't thought about how fucking awesome this game is. Seriously, I can't remember the last time I was this into a video game that wasn't published by Nintendo. I'm happy to report that Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is the first FromSoft title that I have ever loved, and now I'm gonna discuss why. The first thing I feel compelled to address here is the typical talking point surrounding not just FromSoft titles, but difficult games in general. If you've ever witnessed any amount of online discourse surrounding a particular difficult game, and for your sake I hope you haven't, you've probably seen some variation on this comment. Sure, the game sucks and isn't fun 98% of the time, but the satisfaction of beating a hard boss is so rewarding that it makes it worth all the broken controllers and neglected personal relationships. Now, on its face, this makes a degree of sense. Overcoming obstacles in any form feels satisfying, whether that be a tough boss in a video game, making it to 5:01 p.m. on a Friday, or claiming victory over a particularly elusive orgasm. However, and I want to be crystal clear about this,
that's not a good enough reason to play a game.
If you're not having fun 98% of the time, that obviously means you're only enjoying yourself 2% of the time, which is about as much as I enjoy All the Right Reasons by Nickelback, right? You hear that drum intro on Follow You Home, and it's like, okay, some impressive double kick work. A little excessive, but even still. Okay, yeah, no, this sucks. In the same way that I wouldn't call All the Right Reasons a good album just for that one drum fill, nobody should praise or recommend a game just because it's satisfying to overcome something difficult, because yeah, of course it is. Now, what is worth praising, however, are the specific ways in which the level of challenge pushes you to think creatively and find solutions, and this is something that Sekiro not only does very, very well, but teaches you early on. One of the first mini-bosses you face in the game is this big dude right here. If you eavesdrop on the guards before you face him, you'll hear them mention that those with red eyes fear fire, or whatever. Okay, cool. Let you know that somehow fire will be involved in beating him. So, the first time I went to face him, big surprise, he was hard as shit. Like, Jesus Christ, those jump kicks are insane. Look at this big fucker. So, after trying a few times and learning his patterns, still was not really getting anywhere. Like, Now come on! If I had listened to all the internet people and their misleading talk about Soulsborne and difficulty and slowness selection, I could have reasonably thought I just needed to get good and wasted a bunch of time tackling this section for much longer than I needed to. But since I knew that rhetoric was faux macho gamer bullshit, I could tell that I was just missing something. I knew fire was somehow involved, but I scoured my immediate area and didn't find anything that would set him on fire. So what was the solution? As it turns out, I had received a bell in an earlier section, and its item description mentioned that ringing it at a statue of Buddha might take me somewhere interesting, hint hint, nudge nudge. So I did that, and was teleported to a new area 3 years in the past, and shortly after making my way into this new area, hey, what do you know? A weapon upgrade that lets me set people on fire. Not only is this an example of the game rewarding you for exploration, but it showcases how your success and eventual understanding stems from dying repeatedly. These big, insane boss fights aren't a giant middle finger to the player. They're puzzles with specific solutions, and while internet commenters might make it seem like those solutions reveal themselves through trial and error, they really come from your own critical thinking about the game as a whole, not just that specific fight. Sekiro tells you right away, hey dude, you're gonna die a lot in this game, but don't get discouraged, it's all part of the experience. If you find that you're stuck on a specific section, try to think about what you might be missing. Are there any areas you haven't visited yet? Go exploring and see what you find. Also, remember your skill upgrades? When was the last time you checked those? Maybe there's one you haven't bought yet that would be helpful in this exact situation. And since Sekiro isn't an open world game with a ton of variables, FromSoft has the luxury of tailoring your unlockable skills to the experiences they already know you're going to have. Now, apparently the lack of multiple weapons and character customization is one of the most highly contested aspects of this game from hardcore Soulsborne fans, and while I understand that to a certain extent, I truly believe that this leads to one of the game's greatest strengths. Since you play the same character with the same sword every time, the devs know exactly what you need for every specific situation, but they still leave it up to you to figure out what that is by encouraging you to experience all that the game has to offer. You wouldn't quite get the same feeling of, oh shit, here it is, now I can use this on that one guy, if they had to make each encounter functional for a myriad of different playstyles. Ultimately, how you feel about this will more than likely come down to personal preference, but when given the choice between a bunch of options that range from pretty good to total shit, or just one option that the game is designed to complement and vice versa, I always tend to prefer the latter rather than the former. The last piece I want to delve into here is, in my opinion, the single most important integrand of any action-adventure game. It's not level design, it's not visual clarity, it's not frame rate, and I would argue that it's fundamentally more important than all of those other details combined. Is the character fun to play? How does it feel to run and jump and attack and do all the other stuff we can do when we take control of our protagonist? If you ask me, and you're watching my video so you kinda did, the top 3 action-adventure games in recent years that have most masterfully championed the idea of ensuring that each and every action feels great are Super Mario Odyssey, Insomniac's Spider-Man, and now Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Controlling... Wait, what is his name Sekiro? Or is it like Wolf or like Okami? Or does he technically have a name? Hang on a second. Literally all 3. Okay. Controlling Sekiro the Hedgehog feels so damn good, whether it's wildly swinging your sword around, or perfectly nailing a thrust counter, or traversing the environments with your grappling hook arm. Above all else, this idea is what prevented me from getting into Dark Souls or Bloodborne. Customizing my character with the coolest weapons and armor and taking on the massive bosses just didn't hold any water for me because I simply didn't like the way it felt to interact with the world. Here's why I think this is imperative. One of the key components of good game design is being able to trick the player into not realizing that they're doing the same thing over and over again. Many years ago, developers at Bungie came up with a formula that would serve as the basis for their tenure with the Halo franchise. A 3-second enemy AI loop inside a 30-second core gameplay loop inside a 3-minute mission design loop. With all 3 of these plates spinning at different intervals, they never overlap in precisely the same spot, giving you a different experience each time while still retaining the same core 30 seconds of play. Hence, you're technically repeating the same 30 seconds of action over and over again, but it never feels repetitive. That's good game design. So how do you create a satisfying loop in a game like Sekiro or Super Mario Odyssey, in which the enemies are always in the same spot and behave more or less the same? Simple. Make it fun to control the character. And not just functional, not just responsive, but actually fun. The playable character in a video game is your surrogate into that game's world, and no amount of intricate storytelling, complex leveling systems, square miles of map, or sheer hours of gameplay can change that. You, as a player, are far more likely to feel immersed in a game's domain if you feel connected to the main character, not just through the writing or the narrative, but through the genuine thrill of captivating player input. In the realm of action games, there's no substitution for it, and while others may feel differently, I personally wouldn't have it any other way. So sure, at a glance, Sekiro is a hard game that kills you all the damn time. But upon closer inspection, it's a meticulously crafted escapade that gives you just enough guidance to find solutions to difficult problems all on your own. When you progress in Sekiro, you are the one who's progressing. While it's constantly throwing new challenges your way, it's also constantly setting you up to feel confident in your own abilities, so you never feel like you're just fumbling your way from one area to the next. Yes, this is a difficult game, but it's a difficult game that loves and respects the player and wants you to succeed. The goal isn't to simply feel satisfied by triumphing over something arduous, it's to set you off on a fun, cool-ass, engaging adventure as a shinobi, and in my humble opinion, that's fucking awesome and worth recognizing. If you, like me, have been put off for years by the daunting nature of FromSoft titles and their often elitist egomaniacal fanbases, but have nonetheless been looking for a way in, I think Sekiro is that port of entry. I've barely scratched the surface of Sekiro's libations in my playthrough, but I'm certain that I'm going to be sinking many more hours into far fewer bosses for a long time coming, and loving every second of it. If you like the music for this video, you can check out the visualizer right here. It's called Robert's Firecrackers, and it is the latest addition to my ongoing compilation album, Pretty Much Background Music. It's updated monthly with new short instrumentals that you can stream or download at nugatory.bandcamp.com. If you like this video and want to see more, let me know by liking it and subscribing to the channel. Doesn't cost you anything, but helps me out a ton. One final note on this video, I didn't really go too deep into the whole conversation currently happening surrounding this game and difficulty and easy modes and accessibility, because I don't really think I have much to add that hasn't already been said, but if you do want to watch a great video about that topic, the good folks over at NoClip made a terrific one that I will link to down below. But until next time, thank you all for watching, and as I always say,